Welcome to the Fear and Greed Daily Interview. I'm Sean Aylmer. In 1995, an online bookseller launched with the goal of offering the world's largest collection of books to anyone with internet access. Although it grew quickly, it didn't make profit for 6 years, until the fourth quarter of 2001. Now, 20 years later, Amazon is the largest online sales company in the world, selling a lot more than just books. Founder Jeff Bezos, who initially ran the business out of his garage, is now worth almost $200 billion. He's the richest person in the world. I wanted to take a closer look at Amazon today, at the remarkable expansion of the business and where it might be heading. Stephen Fenech is one of Australia's top technology journalists and the editor and publisher of techguide.com.au. Stephen, welcome back to Fear and Greed.
Great to be back. How are you going?
Well, thank you. Now, can you give me a snapshot of the early days of Amazon? Why did it get into books?
Well, it was early days, and I think what Bezos did was he took a look at the products that would probably be best marketed online, what would sell. And I think he narrowed it down. He made a list of about 20 products. We're talking like videos, books was one of them, compact discs. So small products that you didn't need to try on, you just bought it. So he decided on books because it had a huge demand. People loved literature around the world, generally a low unit price as well for that particular item. And there was so many titles in print. He thought, well, that's a great product to start with.
Yeah, okay. And so he sort of struggled along really for the first 5 years or so. As I mentioned, Amazon became profitable at the end of 2001. That's right, post.com. Why didn't Amazon crash, or did it?
They avoided the bubble because there were a lot of companies that their business model they adopted was, hang on, look, we're online, we're on the internet, look at us. Bezos was the first. He was a visionary in terms of thinking, well, you know what, this internet thing, and it was still relatively new when he started. The internet, not many people even heard of the internet when Amazon started. He tapped into the right business model. He thought, right, his research with the products to sell worked. He worked out that the internet could completely change the shopping landscape, and look how right he was. And look at it today, the chance he took. And don't forget, he's got a Wall Street background, so he's not some guy who had no experience in business and didn't know anything about the financial world. He came well armed with this information and rightly predicted what was going to happen.
Yeah. So when did it expand from books?
I think 98, they moved into music and video, and also expanded to the UK and Germany. So they began expanding around the world. It didn't get to Australia till 2017, but that's probably a story for another day. But in 1999, they were selling video games, electronics, software, toys. So they were slowly expanding the product offering. I think they went public in 97. Like less than 2 years after being founded. But I think the product that kind of made people take notice of Amazon was the Kindle. You remember back in 2007?
Yeah, of course.
That's when they launched the Kindle, and this was an e-reader, the first of its kind. And because they had so much experience selling books, this really changed the landscape. And it was only I think by 2011, Kindle ebooks were outselling printed books. So they were onto something here. So that kind of got everyone's attention.
Yeah, it's quite incredible. If you fast forward to today, it's essentially a platform for hundreds of thousands of other businesses to sell their own products on it now. So evolved well past Amazon selling its own products. How does that work now that where third-party businesses are selling their products on Amazon?
Yeah, well, it's just developed such an amazing network of storage departments, and all around the world, you got these warehouses that can facilitate all these businesses. A lot of people do, I think drop shipping is another thing that people, they have their products in a certain place and they can move them around the world. Amazon's network there, so their infrastructure is what the basis of their success today. So that's why they're so successful.
And of course, Amazon Web Services is a big product. They seem to get on the whole cloud computing craze earlier as well.
Yeah, again, another thing that Amazon saw into the future, they thought this is going to be a useful service. And you're right, they were one of the very first to offer cloud computing, cloud storage. Back in 2002, they first offered, Amazon Web Services was first an analytics thing. So they offered data on your internet traffic. So a little bit ahead of Google Analytics even. So they were sort of playing at the same time. Google had only been founded about, I think, 98. Google was founded. So they were onto something there, offering stats and patterns, and people were starting to take notice of the web and the traffic and how it can be analyzed and improved. But then they became a hosting platform. That was the next thing. So web services, then suddenly other sites were relying on Amazon services, their servers, to keep them on the internet. So the whole Amazon were there at the start. They realized that, you know what, other people are going to want to have internet sites as well, and they'll need servers and this technology that'll help them get to the rest of the world. We can provide that. And they were one of the earliest providers of those services.
It's funny, I mean, as we talk we'll go in a moment to the streaming services and Alexa and those sorts of things. But Bezos himself, he obviously was an incredible visionary and has been able to remain that, first going on selling books online through to being one of the first data providers to being a web host to all the things they do now. What's he like? He's obviously clearly an incredibly smart guy.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, as I said, he's a Wall Street guy. He knows how things work. He knows the financial world back to front. And you got to remember at the time, so back in 1994 when it was founded, a lot of people saw the internet as this way to share information and to connect to other people. He saw it another way. He thought this is going to be the world's biggest shopping center. And that vision turned into what Amazon is today, this huge company, very successful company. So I think to appreciate it, you got to cast your mind back to that time. It's like this big land grab that was taking place, this big gold rush. Yeah. There's this thing called the internet. How can we monetize it? He was the guy in those early days who was thinking about the money, how they can monetize, whereas other people were just fascinated by, oh, look, my computer is connected to another computer. He was looking at it through a different set of lenses.
Yeah. And I mean, the amazing thing about Amazon is its share price, it didn't do that much for the first sort of 18 years or 19 years. And then in the last sort of 5 years or so, it's gone through the roof. And it's just, if I had invested $1,000 in 1996, I think it'd be worth about $3 million today. But most of that's happened at the end.
Yeah, I think Amazon's had a bit of a struggle sometimes. They did post losses in those early days. So it was something that took a little bit of time to gain momentum, but look at it where it is today.
Stephen, we'll be back in a minute. My guest this morning is Stephen Fenech, the editor and publisher of techguide.com.au. So Alexa, that's the big offerings that it's talking about now. We all know about Amazon Prime, and whilst it's huge in Europe, it's less so in Australia, but certainly a very competitive streaming service, and Alexa, the virtual assistant technology. Yep. Is that the way forward for Amazon?
Well, streaming, Amazon Prime has been around since a version of it launched back in 2006. So it was one of the first streaming services. So again, this vision that people are going to want to not have the physical media, but they're going to use the internet to stream their content, which was even back in 2006 a relatively new concept. You got to remember that the iPod had been launched in 2001, so digital music was starting to come into play. And then the streaming services for video content were also in their infancy as well. So they were one of the first. Okay. And in terms of Alexa, that's just a whole other category that they've pioneered here, where the virtual assistant technology, pair that up with also its connectivity to smart home products. So being able to talk to your speakers, having not only just the convenience of your music, which was kind of the Sonos model, whereas you have your music wirelessly connected in multiple rooms, but he added another layer to that. So with Alexa, you can talk to it, find information, buy things naturally, of course, through Alexa. You can tell your Alexa to buy you something, or if you've run out of a certain product that you've bought before on Amazon, it's as simple as just you speak a sentence and that order has been made again. So from all aspects, he's thought of this, how these products are not only convenient, but also can help him make money for customers. The less friction there is between them and their purchase, the better. Yeah. That's why I'm fascinated with Amazon's way. I think they were one of the early online upsellers. I'm sure you've received an email with recommendations and telling you to, the less clicks towards your purchase. Today, that seems like, okay, that's what you take for granted. But back then, that was sort of forward thinking, being able to streamline that experience. Things like remembering your credit card details, your delivery address, things that can make that purchase faster. As I said, something that you take for granted today. But back then, that was just a tremendous idea that's now used by everyone else.
So we shouldn't be surprised then that Amazon's Blue Origin program is all about sending people into space.
Yeah, I think that Jeff Bezos has more money than he knows what to do with. So he's looking to get into space. I think it's the new frontier for people. I think, again, he's sort of pioneering spirit, his visionary kind of personality. He wants to be the first to do something like that, going into space, sending people into space. Again, I think that's the motivation behind it.
Now, the one purchase he did make which surprised everyone and doesn't fit with the theme is the Washington Post, the traditional newspaper and website, of course. Was that all about influence, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. And I think a bit of prestige as well. Washington Post is quite a prestigious title, but also too, I think having a product like that, owning a product like that, it is all about the prestige, but also too, it is also being part of a media company. Having a media company, that's also just another path to information and data and more customers. So I think he wanted to round out his resume rather than just being a one-trick pony. He wanted to maybe expand into these other areas. That's why I think you're seeing Blue Origin and all these other aspects of his career. He wants to expand, and credit to him, he's got the courage to sort of expand in those areas.
Yeah. Has he had many failures?
Yeah, there's a few. I think not everyone has hits. Even big companies like Apple have misses as well. Yep. Amazon is the same. There's a couple. There was the Amazon Spark, which was kind of like a social media platform around their shopping, sort of having product recommendations. And it was like Instagram for shopping, basically. That sort of died a death. But the other one, I think the biggest one was the Fire phone. They had the success with Kindle and wanted to build on that. They saw what Apple was doing with the iPhone and thought, you know what, we could take advantage of this. And that they thought, well, let's get in on this craze. He thought, rising tide lifts all boats here. So if I make a phone, it's going to be successful. Unfortunately, Apple had a stranglehold on the market, and Samsung were also coming into prominence as well. The device, it had these new features that we didn't know very well, like things like movement control, gesture control, probably a little ahead of their time. It also had this sort of 3D dynamic screen. It was like a perspective screen, I think they called it. So these features, while they sounded appealing, they just didn't deliver on the experience, and that's why Fire phone died a death. I think it cost the company more than $170 million from development to the final product rolling off the line. But again, it was an attempt to tap into a market that was just booming, the smartphone market. Unfortunately, Amazon missed that mark.
We speak so much about Amazon's success. Away from purely earning money, it's also taken a real stand on issues. So its employees make $15 an hour, which is about double the federal minimum wage in the US. It's the largest corporate purchaser of renewable energy. It's got a heart to it as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think that having that kind of success, you need to have obviously loyalty from your employees. You need to make yourself the leader in business. You need to be able to give you the working conditions for your employees to go that extra mile. And I think that's a good thing that Bezos has done this and provided just a great working atmosphere, some great working conditions. And that's the reason why I think people stayed and why it attracted a lot of other employees as well.
Now, Jeff Bezos steps down from the day-to-day running of the show next month. Andrew Jassy takes over. He's the head of cloud computing division. Must be hard after 25 years of having one person, one figurehead running a company, and particularly when it's been so successful, to sort of change pilots.
Yeah, well, Jassy he's the person who headed up the cloud computing division to start with. So his credentials were present. They knew what he's capable of, and his part of the business has become the most highly profitable part of the business as well. So Amazon Cloud Services is now highly profitable, more so than the retail side of the business. Right. So for anyone who you choose to take over, the guy who's responsible for that side of the business, I think the company's in pretty good hands there. He's pretty savvy and created this huge, like $50 billion plus business for them that is still very highly profitable to this day.
Fair enough. So you think Amazon will continue doing what it does best and keep growing in the next few years?
Well, they're expanding even further. I mentioned they've been in Australia since 2017. They've built these huge fulfillment centres. I think they've got a robotics centre out in Western Sydney that they're building as well. So I think they're marking their territory, absolutely. They're expanding even further. They're offering things like same-day delivery, next-day delivery. It just makes it so easy to buy products on the Amazon platform. That's why so many businesses are using their platform to sell their products, because there are just they've got so many customers who know how efficient they are, how fast they get their products. That's why they're going from strength to strength.
Stephen, thanks for talking to Fear and Greed.
My pleasure. Thanks, mate.
That was Stephen Fenech, the editor and publisher of techguide.com.au. This is the Fear and Greed Daily Interview. Join me every morning for the full Fear and Greed podcast with all the business news you need to know. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your day.